So here's our code for our driver class called Snake Eyes. I actually changed it to Snake Eyes 2 because I made some minor modifications to the original code I was working with. Notice that it has a main method, and in the main method we declare a constant for the number of rolls, a couple of ints to store the face values, and a count method that's going to keep track of the number of snake eyes. Now, snake eyes is when you roll 2 ones, and so what we want to know is if we roll the dice 100 times, how often would we expect, or how much would we actually get 2 ones to come up on our die. We create 2 instances of the die class, calling its constructor using the keyword new, which means that we actually go into memory, set aside a memory space for our object called die1, set aside a different memory address, memory space for die2. We use the for method because we know how many times we want to roll the die. And we call the object's roll method. It goes in, randomly generates a value from 1 to 6, and assigns the result to num1. Does the same thing for die2. I added a system out print line statement which can actually show us the results of each one of those rolls. And then I have an if statement inside our for loop that checks to see if num1 has a face value of 1 and num2 has a face value of 1. The logical AND means that both have to be true for it to increment the count. And then after we loop our 100 times and get our results, then we display the number of rolls, the count, which is the number of snake eyes that we got, and then it calculates a ratio for our results. Okay, I run that, and I'll move up the results here so that you can see the results of my run. First of all, down at the bottom of the output you can see 100 rolls. I only got 1 snake eye, and so it was only 1% result out of 100 rolls. And then here are the individual rolls 1 to 100. You can see on the first roll I got a 6, and then I got a 4, and so on. And just for the fun of it, we'll roll it again, see what results we got. That time we got 3 snake eyes, ratio's 3%. Run it one more time, and that time we got 6 snake eyes, 6%. Okay, in the code what we saw was we had the driver class referred to as Snake Eyes, and we had the die class. Snake Eyes created 2 instances of the die class, and then we access the private data using the public methods of the die class. We can think of Snake Eyes as being a client, and think of the die class as being a server. With encapsulation, we can think of the classes as or the objects created from a class as a black box. We don't really know the inner workings of the black box, so in this case the client, Snake Eyes, didn't really need to know the details of what happened in the roll method. We just called the roll method and we made use of it. We used the public methods to access the data. The public and private visibility modifiers For variables, you wouldn't want your variables to be public because that violates the principle of encapsulation or data hiding. So generally we make our variables private. Methods, on the other hand, can be public or private. If the methods are public, that provides service to the client. The roll method, for example, allowed us to roll the die and generate a face value based on a random number. If they're private, that means they support other methods in the class. The Snake Eyes example did not use private methods, but let's take a look at an example that does. First of all, we need to understand method control. Here we're calling my method from a class called compute, but my method is part of the class, so we just call the method my method. It processes the data and returns the result for us. Here we have a class that has a main method. We create an object from a class, and we call that object's doIt method. In the doIt method, it calls the helpMe method, which is part of this class. HelpMe method processes the data and returns it to the doIt method. The doIt method then uses those results and returns it to our main, which is back in our client. doIt would be public, helpMe would be private. Let's look at a bank account example. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a account class, encapsulate some data, have some public and private methods, and we're going to create a couple of objects, account 1 and account 2, which allow us to manipulate the data. The Java source code used in this video is available as a free download at www.myiowatech.com. The MyIowaTech website provides additional videos on the subject of Java, PHP, network security, and other programming technologies.